Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. As I haven't done a talking to a camcorder and a tripod video for a while, I thought I'd do one today. The subject, as you could see, is above there, and the reason I'm doing it is mostly on YouTube. The gameplay videos you see in the first person shooter mode is usually, more often than not, the multiplayer element of the game and not the campaign. There's walkthrough videos of the campaign, but nobody ever really talks about the campaign because everybody today buys the game mostly for the first person shooting element, and that's where they spend 90% of their time on the game. I've been playing first person shooter games since I think it's the late 1970s in the arcades. It was a game called Battlefront, I think. It was a simple wireframe game in that you're controlling a tank and you have to trundle over a wireframe landscape and blow up other AI computer controlled tanks. The first real first-person shooter game I actually played was Doom in 1993 when it was released. Then that was more or less it until Medal of Honor came out in 2002. Notes. Then the Call of Duty franchise started in 2003 with the original Call of Duty for PC. Then Call of Duty 2 came out in 2005. Then it really took off with Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3. In between them we had the Battlefield franchise coming out. I played them all except Battlefield 3, which I didn't really fancy paying for because of all the things I read about it. Anyway, the Doom didn't have much of a story. It was just essentially just going around a maze and killing anything that moved. But Medal of Honor had a more emotional involvement with it because it was based on real events, namely the Second World War, and Max Payne, the trilogy. It was a breakthrough for games, even though I don't care for third-person shooters, in that you had to accomplish things and the story was like a movie. You got emotionally involved in Max's journey from the Roscoe Street station all the way up to when it finally finished in Max Payne 3, that beach in Brazil. The same with Call of Duty, like the Allied Medal of Honor, you got emotionally involved in people and a sense of accomplishment once you managed to do the level. And of course Call of Duty 2, the British were involved in that game, so I could play as part of my country and not just American, which I get a bit sick of. Same with Call of Duty 4. It's nice to see Britain playing in these games and mostly just the US Army, even though, as I said in a long video way back, it's on the YouTube, my channel page, the Infinity Ward was just too lazy and lackadaisical to bother doing any research for authenticity to give the SAS the weapons which the SAS used. Instead they just gave them American weapons, which shows that they couldn't care less about authenticity. They just wanted to make the game and get it out. Battlefield 2, the campaign wasn't much, as such. It was alright, but I only got a quarter of the way through it and I just got sick of it, and I just went straight into multiplayer. As I said, I didn't play Battlefield 3, so I have no idea what the campaign was like. As what I've read, it wasn't much of a one anyway, and I'm glad I missed it out. And Battlefield 4 campaign that I finished about a week and a half ago, it was alright, but the ending was a bit flat. And first, for the record, I threw the C4 to Hannah, as Admiral Chang was Dicey's idea of Imran Zakhaev, and he was wanting to throw a coup in China, and it was only right that his coup attempt was ended by somebody who's Chinese, and to rub it in and for him to lose face, it would be a Chinese girl. So anyway, Irish had a wife and kids, so it was Hannah that I tossed the C4 to. But that's getting beyond this video. Bad Company 2 campaign was good. Even though it was just purely American, it was alright, especially the jungle section. But that campaign had a anti-climax flat ending. Up to that it was alright, but the ending wasn't the same as the Modern Warfare trilogy. Alright, in Modern Warfare 2 it got a bit Michael Bay-ish, but then so what? Michael Bay makes escapism movies, and I like the big scale of the trilogy story. But my interest in Modern Warfare ended with the death of Makarov and Captain Price waiting for the police to arrive. And that brings me on to Battlefield 5. We don't really know much about it at all. DICE is currently concerned with Star Wars Battlefront, which I might or might not get depending on what the official trailers are like. But Battlefield 5 hopefully will be more, the campaign I mean, that more, more believable than Battlefield 4's campaign. Battlefield 4, you've only got the three factions: the Yanks, the Russians and the Chinese. In the multiplayer, you can only mix around the factions so many times. In Call of Duty, you had the Russians, the Yanks, us British and Germany. The same with Call of Duty 2, Russians, Yanks, us Britons and Germany. In Medal of Honor, it was mostly just the Yanks with the US Rangers and the Germans. Call of Duty 5, you had the SAS with American weapons, the US Marine Corps Op 4, that was Assad's Arab militia army, the ultranationalists and the Russian loyalists. Modern Warfare 2, you had 10 factions in the campaign. You had Task Force 141, which was international. You got the Brazilian militia. You got the Inner Circle, that was Makarov's lot. You got the US Rangers, the SAS, again only for the London level. The United States SEALs. You got Spetsnaz. You got Shadow Company US. That could have been like an offshoot of the US Marines. And the US Marines and the ultranationalists again, but this time as they were the good Russians, as Gad said in Call of Duty 4. These are good Russians or the bad Russians. That bit right at the very beginning of the game. In Modern Warfare 3 you had 7 factions. The SAS, the American Delta Force, the Inner Circle, Makarov's lot again, GIGN, the French police paramilitaries. That was a good level, that was. Really enjoyed that one. German infantry during the Russian assault on Hamburg. Wish I'd included them more. PMC, Private Military Company. Can't remember whether they were in the Modern Warfare 3. And the African Militia. In Battlefield 2, you only had four factions. The US Marine Corps, the PLA, that's the Chinese Army, the Eastern Alliance, that was a federation of Arab states, and in the expansions of Battlefield 2 you had the European Union, which means British soldiers again. Battlefield 3, as I said, I didn't get, so I don't know what factions there was in the campaign. Battlefield 4, as I said earlier, you got the Yanks, the Chinese and the Russians. In Bad Company you just had the Yanks, the Bad Company guys, the Russians and various Latin American militia in the jungle levels. I've also played Arma 2, mostly because the Operation Arrowhead had British soldiers on it, and I just wanted to play as my countrymen and not continually as Americans or Russians or Chinese, etc. The Arma 2 also had a series of different factions. I'll put the link below, but it's interesting to look at. The CHDKZ, the Belarus, which was the place where the Arma 2 was set. It's a mountainous region in Czechoslovakia and it's really quite pretty. I've never been there and I probably never will, but according to what I've seen of it on the game, it's quite a nice place to live if you like peace and quiet. Anyway, they had the Belarus movement of Red Star, they had the Russian Armed Forces, which were peacekeeping, that's the good Russians again. We also had in the expansion the British, the Czech Armed Forces, and the Germans, all with their own national authentic weapons for authenticity, something which Infinity Ward can't seem to get their head around, but then Infinity Ward is based in California and America and probably couldn't point to Britain or Czechoslovakia on a map. We also had the National Party and the Belarus Defence Force and the US Marine Corps, because you've got to have usually the Americans in these games, otherwise it won't sell in America, where a large part of their audience is. And I think it was 4 days go on Arma 3. I wasn't going to buy Arma 3, but I decided to try it out because it was free and the clock was ticking, so I jumped in. The factions in the campaign are CSAT, which was a conglomerate of Iran, China and several Eastern and Middle Eastern states, like a federation. We had NATO, which was America again and Britain, so we could at least play some British soldiers. The AAF, which was Atlas Armed Forces. Atlas, as you know, is the island which the game was based on. And the FIA, Freedom and Independence Party, which was also based in Atlas, and Ion Services Incorporated, which was American private military, which is a bit like Blackstone. Going back to Battlefield 5, I hope DICE doesn't jump back onto the safe thing and just have in the Yanks, the Russians and the Chinese again. The pointless really doing that, because I did a really long video about several trouble zones around the world, but today, when they were making Battlefield 4, there's 2 trouble spots spring up, namely in northern Iraq with those murderous Islamic nut jobs called ISIS or Islamic State or whatever they want to call themselves, and the current trouble on Ukraine with NATO trying to go up to Russian borders, and the Russians don't like it, and rightly so. So I did a little bit of looking around. The Battlefield 5 could incorporate those 2 theatres of operations, and for factions there's an equal number on both sides. On the Ukrainian side you got the UAF, Ukrainian Armed Forces. You've also got the I can't even read my own writing. Tritonal Defence Battalions, and we've got the East UKR, that'd be Ukrainian Militia, and into that lot in real life we've got a group called Ukrainian Partisans, which are more like a guerrilla group. Facing them on the other side you've got the United Armed Forces of Novorussia, which is now called NAF, National Novorussia Armed Forces, and the LNR and DNR, which is the 2 regions. I can't pronounce it. I've thrown the notes away that I've put for this. Now that would be one area, even though it's a real life ongoing conflict with real people getting killed, with real. And the other side is the Syrian and National Iraq, with on the Syrian side we got the SAA, the Syrian Arab Army, we got Hezbollah, their allies, and the Peshmerga, that's Kurdistan, and facing them you got the FSA, Free Syrian Army, ISIS again, and al-Nusra. You've also got a group called Jaysho al-Jihad, or the Jihad Army. Also into that lot you got the Turkish forces, the Turkish military army, and the Lebanese army. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 factions in the Middle East, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 factions currently in Ukraine. Now, whether or not DICE will have a look around the world and incorporate a story involving those factions, I don't know, you don't know, nobody knows but DICE. But as DICE is mostly po-faced Swedes, they'll most probably take the safe option, and they'll go again for the Americans, the Russians and the Chinese, or the Americans facing the big bad Russians, which in Ukraine that's what the Russians are being portrayed as, the big bad Russians, where in real life, instead of the Yanks wearing the white hat and the Russians wearing the black hat, both sides wear the grey hat, because both sides are equally as bad as one another when it comes to national interest and real politics and the military element. But I'm getting beyond the purpose of this video with this. So I just wanted to comment about the gameplay, the campaign. I hope Battlefield 4 is as immersive as Call of Duty the Modern Warfare was, as a tri-story that you could really get into and like at the end of Call of Duty 4, I got a bit upset when Gaz got killed. Okay, he's a line of coding and a camera. Not line of camera, you silly bugger. He's a line of coding, artificial intelligence. He's not a real person, but it was a shock to see him get killed. The same when Ghost got killed in Modern Warfare 2. That was a shock. But it was all part of a story, a trilogy story arc. And that's the kind of campaign which I like. If DICE has to go to Michael Bay and have DICE in California do it, and Michael Bay directs it, at least you know it'll be spectacular and flashy and explosions, and you're like in a war. That's what I liked about the campaign for Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3. The Call of Duty 4 set the tone for it. Also, as I said, it came out in 2007. They drew inspiration for the invasion of al-Assad's Middle Eastern country from the Gulf War to the Iraq War in 2003. Also, they've in the locker room, the shower room in Modern Warfare 2, that was clearly from the movie The Rock, so maybe DICE will do something like that, but as I said, being mostly po-faced Swedes, they won't do it, and it could be dull and boring. Anyway, I'm starting to repeat myself a bit now, but I just wanted to say the campaigns, they put a lot of effort into it, and the maps that the the maps in the campaign, especially the Modern Warfare, some of them are just like a corridor, linear, but some of them are more open, especially the maps you get in the Battlefield thing. My persistent complaint is, why don't the developers use the same maps for the multiplayer? The maps for the campaign, as you could see in the Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3,